here at this time of the day. I'm Diana Perez, chair of the Metro Arts Commission. I think this is my very first official meeting as a chair, so bear with me, some grace. And please do tell me or correct me if you need to. We are a team, and I absolutely trust you, especially on Robert's rules that I'm still learning. So, but anyways, let's get to business. We're gonna start then with the public comment item. Do we have any? No public comment. Any public comment from the present community? No. Okay, then we'll move to, there's no landmark acknowledge here?
No, we don't do this.
We don't do that here. Okay. Then we're going to move to the item of the Budget Committee request discussion. And to put context on this was a request that was made in the last year, November commission meeting, to have a committee, a budget committee or finance committee, to, of course, oversee and see the finance business of Metro Arts. Daniel, is there anything else that we should talk to put everything in context after we open the discussion?
Sure, no, so I just wanted, I'm sorry. So I just wanted us to think through what might this committee do, and is there a mechanism by which that's already existing, whether it's the executive committee or some other process that might be able to carry out the functions that's requested of that. It'll just be a lot easier for us to manage with an existing process than starting a whole new process. So what do you think the budget committee should do, and can the executive committee itself do that, is the question I have.
And I guess I would like to start talking as to what were the reasons that this committee was requested or suggested to have, so we can also have that context.
Yeah. So one of the requests that came in was because of why the Thrive awards were categorized under contracting and consulting. And as I shared in the January meeting, we have asked accounting if we can list it as a separate Thrive object code. And we were told by accounting to use one of the existing account codes, because anytime you create a new accounting code, it's for every department in Metro. And so if you create a Thrive specific object account code, then it would show up in every department's accounting as a line item, even if they don't use it. So accounting had asked us to use an existing code like contracting or consulting for the Thrive awards. And so we were following what accounting had asked us. And I sent you all the email in the January meeting. I shared in the January meeting, I shared the printout from accounting about that. So that's one of the reasons why it was requested that there be a budget oversight committee. And then you all received the memo today as well.
Do you all have the memo and read it?
Yeah.
Okay. So then we're going to put that there, and we're going to move to just make sure that we all understood the memo, and then come back to talking about it specifically. Are we going to start having this committee, or what are the options, and what do we want? So the memo was a notice regarding surplus funding, which is going to be $2 million in additional funds. And what is recommended by the Director of Finance is that we have this budget committee. I'm kind of summarizing everything and just bringing it to the important topic that we have now. Of course, there is a lot more on these that is not necessarily directly related to these. So it's strongly suggesting that the budget committee be approved. Now, I want to hear if any of you have an insight on having this budget committee.
Well, I feel like I'm at a slight disadvantage because I was not able to attend the November meeting and hear the discussion surrounding why it was necessary. And I do appreciate you, Director Singh, for explaining that. And I have read the minutes, but sometimes it's good if you were in the meeting. And so please forgive me if some of the things that I ask are a little bit redundant. But anytime questions or requests are made like this, my first question is, what is the actual goal? What type of information do you want to receive? And is there already a current mechanism where we can already get that information without creating additional work for people? Especially in situations like this, because we are volunteers here, taking out our time. We are not subject matter experts in any of this, at least I'm speaking for myself. And so, what is the actual goal? What is it? What is the ask? And then how can we get there with existing structures or resources? So that's always my starting point. And I'm not sure if anybody here can even address that or answer that, or if that's something that we need to take to the entire commission. But before I, appoint or suggest that we have, an additional committee, it's always good to see, can we do that with current resources and mechanisms that we currently have? And so I'll just defer to the people who were at the November meeting, Commissioner Campbell, Commissioner Diana. I'll just start there and defer to you all. Yeah.
So yes, I was present for the November meeting, and thank you, Director Singh, for discussing kind of your perspective on it. I think in addition to solely that, I think it was looking at the overall finances and the overall budget with everything that happened last year, having more communication with the commission, and having, and this was kind of before the audit, I believe, was announced. Everyone there present felt, it seemed, that we really did need a finance committee, a budget committee, to review in detail budgets, because there were a lot of questions about where things were categorized, like Daniel was speaking to, but also about where consultants were working, just more transparency through the grants, through Thrive within grants and everything else. So it seemed that it was a consensus that we really needed to have a finance committee to oversee these things. I've been on commission for 6 years or so, and I feel like we've needed this committee for a while. Prior to Director Singh, I think that we do need to have a finance committee. Looking at the memo that was sent to us today, we are being asked to also form an oversight committee, and so they are strongly urging, legal is strongly urging through this memo, that the budget committee be approved and serve as the financial oversight committee. And that, it seems that's all tied to the internal audit and finance, and there are lots of questions that are rising now and that will continue to do so. Looks like this oversight committee would be made up of 5 or more commissioners, not staff, and directly collaborate with the office, with the legal, internal audit, and so on and so on. So it feels like these two committees could, and I'm with you, Commissioner Leah, that making another committee just for a committee's sake is not the use of anyone's time, staff or volunteers, either way. However, seeing where we are now with finance and everything else, I think it is important to go ahead and form one. And if everyone feels that would also serve as the oversight committee, then I would be in favor of that.
Not having been on the commission in November, but I have read extensively, and I did watch the recording of the meeting in November, so I'm aware of the discussion and all the things around that. I can only compare it to thinking about many organizations that have nonprofits. I know this is a government agency, and Metro has its own finance, but I've always found personally, as a board member, a freedom in having a budget committee who is responsible for looking at the budget in detail, because that is not my area of expertise. I also think there's an advantage to having a committee that looks at that kind of financial stuff and brings it to the commission meeting and can explain it and distill what is often very complicated. And I would appreciate that, especially as a new commissioner, I really tried to do my due diligence in terms of doing all of my research. But I would love to have in commission meetings kind of a report by a budget committee that gives an overview of where we are in the budget and explains it to us in a way that is actionable for us. I also agree that it could serve as the oversight committee as well. So I see it as being something that is kind of liberating, indeed, for me as a commissioner, that I would not have to assume all of that responsibility for understanding what is a pretty complex, as you were saying, kind of process.
Madam Chair, may I?
Yes.
Commissioner Lefkowitz kind of addressed one of the questions I was going to ask is, would this be something that is ongoing or just a specified time? And I kind of answered my question in my head already of if we needed that and what that looked like. We've said, at least I've said time and time again, that we don't get the chance to really talk to one another. And that's oftentimes the time we can meet is the meeting, and sometimes we can't go to other committee meetings. And so it is good to know if we're going to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. I would feel comfortable knowing at least what I'm looking at or voting on. And so I kind of answered my question in my head about if this should be ongoing or a specified time. So thank you. Yeah, thank you.
So the one other option I wanted the executive committee to consider is, like, do you want a lot of boards have a treasurer, and the treasurer is part of the executive committee, and again, that would make it simpler for staff to manage than to have a full committee. So you all can elect a treasurer. Either way, we have to make bylaw changes, right? Whether you stand up a new committee or you appoint a treasurer, we have to amend the bylaws. But then you could stand up a treasurer, and the treasurer is usually part of the executive committee, and that's another approach where you still have the oversight, and the treasurer reports to the executive committee, and the executive committee reports to the full commission. It's just easier for us to manage that flow of work rather than having to manage a whole committee. But again, you all decide. I don't have a vote. You all get to decide how you want to move forward.
Daniel, I want to hear from you, like, what will be having either an standing committee or just an oversight committee, temporary, like, how does that look for the team? I guess just in very detail. I would love to learn that part.
Sure. Right
but,
now.
I'm sorry, and I just want to clarify. I'm not like I know you just said, but I guess you're more suggesting. But in all the pros and cons, also pros.
Yeah. So right now, like, we have one full-time person managing all the committee and commission meetings. Vivian, that's like her only role, and we're barely able to keep up, and often I have to pull other staff to support her because of the level of work that's happening and some of the details I sent out in the email earlier to all of you. So right now, I would say like 1.5 to 2 staff members are managing committee work because of our setup right now and the details I laid out in the email. So this would add to that level of work, and it also adds to the level of work all of you would have to do, and we've had to cancel several committee meetings and several commission meetings in the last year. Last year we canceled 2 commission meetings and multiple committee meetings because we couldn't get quorum for that. So it's basically up to you, to whatever you all decide, and then if you all can actually make the meetings and make it happen. We're trying to get 4 committee meetings to happen before the commission right now. So in a month like February, when this, February 1st was a Thursday, we had 9 business days to get 4 committee meetings done before the commission meeting on the 15th. And we had to move the dates and arrange all of that. And so that might be an anomaly, but now we're adding a 5th committee to that workflow. So we'd have to get 5 committees to meet before the commission. So all of the commission committee recommendations can roll up to the commission. But if that's what you all want, we can do it. But it is going to add to our staff workload.
I just wanted us to think to what's best for the community ultimately. I'm not right now passing any decision or leaning towards anything before just putting these questions for us. But what is, how this going to be reflected is it, we definitely kind of put together these meetings. We need this, the staff to help and assist with these, practically fully. And you can say if you agree with that or not. And if you say we can definitely take on more work and we can discuss and say this is the best for our work, for the mission of the Art Commission, we'll do it. But I just want us to think what is best. Is it going to be reflected or impacting the work of the team in such a way that at the end is going to impact our work overall of the entire commission and what we're doing for the community? Or is it really going to be best? I don't know much about finance, but I really do want to have someone that tell me that we can trust, that is part of the commission, or that we can trust and say, this is not that we don't trust the team, but the team also need that leadership guidance. So I just wanted to say that before we keep debriefing this.
Kind of related that too. I was also thinking I'm completely sensitive, very sensitive to the burden on the staff in terms of especially the administrative piece of putting this together. And it is so much work. And as a new commissioner, I'm incredibly appreciative and have tried to express that to them because I think it is really important. I also wonder from a kind of bigger picture level, though, I see kind of the role of these committees too as supporting the work of the staff, ultimately supporting the initiatives and supporting that work. So there's a sense, maybe it's a short-term, long-term thing or kind of a painful thing we have to get through in terms of the preparation for the meeting. But my hope would be that the oversight and the budget committee would provide clarity and guidance and be ultimately supportive of the staff and of all that you're trying to do and not in conflict with it. So that's one thought about that I'm mulling over.
Madam Chair, do we know, and this probably is directed toward Director Singh, how other commissions deal with staffing issues or how they deal with budget committees? Do they have it, or do they have a treasurer? Do we know how other commissions handle that?
I don't. I can only say that we have an internal grants compliance team that audits all of our Thrive Awards and general operating, and we also have a general audit team that audits us every 3 to 5 years. And so we had an audit in 21, and we have an audit going on now. So we have multiple financial controls already in place. And so again, going back to your original question, Vice Chair Love, what would this committee do that these controls of a grants compliance team and an audit team and procurement is not able to do is the question that we need to figure out. But we don't have to figure out today. You can discuss this again in the next commission meeting. It's like nothing we have to solve today. But this was brought up in November, and we didn't have an executive committee in place. I wanted to just make sure we at least attempted so that in the February meeting we can say we started the discussion, and then you all can continue the discussion too.
I feel like from the November meeting, there was a lot of question, and everyone really needed clarity, both on the commission and the community. After the grants last year and everything else, and then this current audit that we're in, Director Singh, is not it's not a biannual audit. This is one that was called by budget of City Council. So this is one that is more of an investigative audit. And while we go through this process, it feels that a budget committee combined with the oversight committee would bring the transparency to the community and also the information to the commission. And currently we don't have a treasurer, correct? Okay, so I wouldn't feel comfortable just going with that direction until we had a treasurer. And this is something I feel like we need to work through pretty quickly in terms of what we received today. And I agree with Heather. Commissioner Heather, I think we all know that I've been very, very sensitive to the needs of the staff since well before you came on and since you've come on, and through the past year and a half, the staff has had so much on them. And we all need to do what we can do to alleviate any extra work on the staff as it is. But that being said, we have an outgoing finance director, we have a new finance director, and going by the suggestion by the Financial Oversight Committee, having those two together, to me at this point, makes a lot of sense. To be able to come back to the commission and report back. I really do. And trying to find ways to not add a lot of work to the staff. Looking at what they're asking for the oversight committee, it would be 5 or more commissioners, not staff. Now that does not discount the amount of work the staff would need to do to prepare for these meetings. However, I think that at the end of the day, it could really help and lift up the work, and it would also help clarify a lot of the financial questions that are out there, both within the commission and out in the community, and that we would be better stewards of taxpayer dollars by forming a committee like this.
Daniel, I wanted to ask you, what can you see to reduce a little bit the burden of the staff if we start a committee, another committee? Like what options do we have? What else can we look to? Like I know we reduce the CURB meetings, the frequency.
Well, at the last meeting, they said they want to meet every month. So I mean, they want to meet the same schedule.
But we can definitely risk some things temporarily in order to respond to these. And to me, it's very important to have clarity and that the community feels and trust and gain the trust, because the department has been for a while now out there, and I really want to start cleaning our image and gaining the trust of the community, and have the community keep working with us without these many roadblocks. So I do want to see exhaust all the options on how we can make this work for everybody.
No, we're happy to do it. I just want to make sure that it's something that's useful and meaningful for the commission and the executive committee. But I still haven't understood what this committee would do that the executive committee cannot do. And that's the part that I'm not clear about. But we don't have to answer that today, so that's fine.
Well, I mean, I, in my opinion, thinking about if the budget committee were going to serve as an oversight committee, as requested in the letter, I think I personally would like to open that up to the expertise of commissioners who might want to serve or had some kind of who just might be interested in that beyond just our group. And so that might be one kind of thing. Because I guess Chair Perez, do you feel like what we're talking about the budget committee, and then there's also kind of the oversight committee on the table. Mm-hmm. And are we thinking about, I feel like we're talking about both of those together as one thing. Another option would be to not have them together, to have an oversight committee, but not a budget committee. But it kind of feels like if you're going to have an oversight committee that they might serve in that role. Mm-hmm. And in terms of the permanence, I don't know if there's precedent for an ad hoc committee or something like that could serve not in perpetuity, but just in times like these. Perhaps this is what is needed. Clearly, this letter indicates this is highly recommended right now. So I don't ever feel like I want to commit to anything forever, but in this particular moment, I was seeing the role of the budget committee to really focus on this oversight piece and to do what we were talking about before, bring it to the commission, have it as an agenda item on the commission so that we get, I mean, even in board meetings I've been in, it's just so helpful, just 2 minutes, right, from a budget committee that can kind of explain an overview of complicated financial statements that I will never, fully understand. So, is that were you thinking of that in terms of the two different?
Yes, absolutely. Just a quick pause. Do I have to call you every time you have to? No. Okay.
Thinking back to the November meeting, my brain has been a little bit mushy. I've had a lot going on, but just thinking back, there were also questions about the grant timing of payouts. There was a lot of, just not clarity around what had happened, as far as why things weren't paid out, where we were. And it felt like at the time it would actually maybe help the staff to have a budget committee formed and that we could all help, figure these things out. And it just, looking at those things outside of just like the coding and how things were going, it felt to me, and I agree, that we all were looking for some answers on some clarity around the budget rather than just getting a spreadsheet and going forward to be more responsible and be accountable to the taxpayers.
I also am thinking about the additional funds that we made available, and I mean, we were at council last night. You spoke beautifully, and it was so moving to hear all of those artists there, and those were some of the artists who really advocated for this money. And here it is. And I don't want to leave anything on the table for, I've had so many conversations. I've learned so much in the last 6 weeks. It's been amazing. And I don't want to leave any of that on the table. So if an oversight committee and that transparency and all of the benefits, if that will provide more funding for artists and communities and organizations, I am for that. So I'll just say that as well.
And just a quick, for what I understood, it is, I don't know if we don't have a legal person here, but to me we're gonna only, we're gonna only release these if we have the oversight committee. But we as the executive committee, let's say we definitely talk and we don't want Daniel, I don't know if you know anything about these, can we actually not follow these? And again, I'm just putting everything on the table for our knowledge and make a right decision on the legal side of it.
Sure. Let me just go through a few things. So when Kevin Crumbo, Director of Finance, reached out to me first with his concerns, I said we're happy to go through any processes you want to do, right? So I invited anything he wants to do around everything. So I just want to be careful that we don't say it's an investigative process, because I invited him to go through anything he wants to do, and if he can do a process better, then we're happy to do it, right? And so I want to point that out, and there's a lot of allegations flying around, so I just want to be careful that we use our words carefully. Second, I asked the audit director to make it a full audit and not just around one process. I said, open it up to every single thing you can open it up to so that no one can point. So I volunteered both of those things. Lastly, our operations have been the same for about 8 years now. So there have been 4 EDs involved in this. So if anything comes out of this, it implies that 4 different EDs have been following Metro processes without being given guidance before this, right? So I just want to walk through all of that. And the last thing, we talk a lot about our anti-racism and equity work, and so here's another moment where they're saying, we'll give you money if you jump through these hoops. And that's a very traditional approach in philanthropy and grant making, and that's also happening here. And I'm just naming it for all of us to be aware of that, but, again, if that'll get the money to the artists, I'm all for it, but that is a very common practice when giving it to communities of color, and I'm the first ED of color in this organization, and I'm being asked to go through processes that none of the previous EDs have had to go through. So I'm just naming it here for that.
Daniel, I had a question before I came in, and I just wanted to kind of get this out there just in case, because we weren't really communicated to about the specifics of the audit.
Yeah.
What is the timeline the audit is looking at?
So I haven't gotten an answer for that, and so when we get into my second part, like we'll talk through why we need Ian for that piece too, because finances are separated out from my purview. Like a lot of the things that I look at, I'm not an approver, right? Like only on certain things I'm approver, but I'm not approver in certain things that like separate out the functions. And so when we asked for an audit timeline, they were not able to give us one. So I don't know if it's going to be 2 weeks, 2 months, or 6 months. I have no idea how long the audit's going to take.
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. I meant, what is the look back period for the audit? Is it merely fiscal year 23?
I don't know. Like I wasn't part of the intake interview. Like so, Ian was the one who was in that. So, but I can find that out. And so I think it's from January of 23 to December of 23. But I will double check and let you know.
That would make, I think, a little bit of a difference just within that 1 year period, and then just looking at the letter, the second, or at the bottom, that rising concerns about the management of financial resources led the Metro Audit Committee to unanimously approve a review by the Metro Internal Audit at its December 2023 meeting. This, to me, also kind of, it makes me feel that the Budget Committee is important because of it might help, figure out all of these things and take some of it off of the staff. But the timeline, when I was driving here, I was just thinking, is the audit fiscal year 23? Are we looking back 2 years to because I think the last that I was involved with was 21. And so, but this is especially called, and I know that you've been very forthright and agreeable with the audit. And at the same time, I think that this has been an ongoing issue since last summer, and that we really need to work with this. And in terms of, is there a precedent for this? There is. Advocacy was ad hoc until we made it permanent. And then, gosh, way back when, there was something else that was ad hoc.
The steering committee's ad hoc.
Yeah, it's ad hoc.
For the cultural planning process, steering committee's ad hoc.
So we could have an ad hoc committee for this, and then it would not be permanent.
So the ad hoc committee doesn't need to be, doesn't require a bylaw change. Mm-hmm. But if it becomes a standing committee, we have to change the bylaws.
So we could make this an ad hoc committee.
And then to start, and then if you decide you want to keep it, you could then change the bylaws and make it a standing committee.
And so these will be also the oversight committee.
So, sorry, just to clarify a question, Ian just told me that it's open-ended audit. Currently, it's for the fiscal year 23-24.
One other thing that occurs to me as you were talking, Commissioner West, is if we did think about it as a budget committee that was not just solely in response to this.
Yeah.
One thing that I've been thinking about is perhaps what might happen in that budget committee is looking to your question about what would they do. Sometimes in other budget committees that I've been on, like things, structures, opportunities to, for example, bake in equity, right, to processes, right, to create sustainable processes from a finance perspective, right, that if we all got hit by a bus tomorrow, not a metro bus, but some other kind of bus or light rail, not light rail, but if we all, if we all went away, if we all won the lottery, that these processes or structures would be kind of baked in. And so I've been thinking about that in terms of sustainability and equity. And I wonder if it were a committee of the commission and not just in response, but would also serve that oversight role, if some of that might emerge and might be really helpful.
So I just want to speak up for CARE, because if they were here, they will bristle because they feel like the equity piece is supposed to be their work. And the way CARE is structured is that last year they decided that they would meet as CARE, and then they would come and meet, and each CARE member would be a part of all the other committees as well, so that equity is woven into it. So just wanted to put that there as context. But if you all want this, we can do it, like as an ad hoc committee. I'm just giving you the full picture, that's all.
I will say I'm such a fan of that idea. And like at Peabody, we've done that with like equity's not off here. It's integrated into every committee and there's somebody who's speaking to it. And so I think that could be something very powerful potentially.
Madam Chair, it sounds like we were already ahead of this letter with wanting this request or this information. And so it sounds like we've all but made the motion to make a recommendation to send to the full commission. So that's what it sounds like to me. We're bouncing around saying the same thing, that we want this, it's needed. How do we do that? I'm not sure. But just to get something before us, I mean, I don't know if we have to make it tonight, but I am prepared to make a motion that we do an ad hoc committee to start. If that, I don't want to, I mean, we've already been discussing, so there's no motion that we're speaking to, but I think we're there.
Yes. I definitely think we just got there. I think like putting everything on the table was important for all of us to make that. But yeah, I think we're all agreeing of an ad hoc committee that will work as an oversight committee.
Just to touch on 1 second, what Heather said. This was in play prior to this letter. So from the November meeting, and I think that the commission itself would support it as well. So I'm completely with you guys.
And Daniel, I just want to acknowledge what you said, because I'm also part of CUR, and I'm also looking forward for the full and joint training that we're going to have. Again, I'm kind of like very positive of the group that we're bringing together and the new commissioners. But just letting you know that I hear what you said, and that we are not taking, we're trusting each other here, that we're trusting here that this decision is not like, we don't care about that. We do.
No, I appreciate all of it. I just wanted to have a good conversation. I think you have had it, and I think we'll have to check with the bylaws. I think the commission made the recommendations to the executive committee, so I think you all can now just stand it up. You don't have to send it back to the commission. So the process, according to our bylaws, is that the commission makes a recommendation to the executive committee, and you all, if you want to take it, you can just move it forward. We don't have to now go back to the commission per our bylaws, but I can double check. That's why it's come to the executive committee,
right,
because the commission can't move on standing up a committee until the executive committee decides it needs to happen.
Okay, and would next steps be that
you stand
Madam?
you're
the commission does, or the Madam Chair appoints the people, or?
Well, Madam Chair would appoint it, but the executive committee would vote on standing up the ad hoc committee, and then and Madam Chair would appoint the committee members.
So open for vote now.
I made the motion, but there wasn't a second, so I didn't.
I second.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This is for the budget and oversight. Aye.
As one committee, right? Yeah.
As one committee. So motion approved to have an ad hoc and oversight, which will work as an oversight committee as well. And the next steps now would be to choose the committee now, bringing these to the commission and choose them.
Well,
What they,
with the bylaws are written is that the chair appoints the committee members.
Okay.
Just appoint the committee members.
Okay, well, thank you so much for all your brilliant insights on these. Okay, so our next item is Daniel report.
Yeah, so I had sent out an email, and I think we need to have a discussion in a closed meeting. I don't want to bring up everything that happened there in a open meeting, but I think that's up to you all to petition legal if you want to petition legal. If not, if you want me to discuss all that in an open meeting, I'm happy to discuss in an open meeting down the road, but that's for the executive committee to decide. The one thing that I do need to get clarity from you all on is that Ian Meyer's civil service position ended on January 5th. He's the outgoing finance director. He has a history of like 12 years with Metro Arts. And so questions like, why wasn't Thrive coded separately and why was it put in consulting or contracting? He's the only one who knows the answers, and he has the email trail in his inbox of trying to ask for a object code and then being told by accounting that no, you can't do it. So I would like to request that he is on contract till the audit is complete so that we can go through those records if there is a need. But I've also outlined the pros and cons of that in the email to you all. Ian, when he was here, was one grade lower than what the incoming director of finance was classified by HR. And so now, as a contract employee, to bring parity there, I'm paying him the same rate as the incoming director of finance and operations. And so I'm trying to manage all the risks to the agency here because there is a potential for him to turn around and file grievance that he wasn't classified at the right level for all these years. So I think we need to at least keep him at the rate of our incoming director of finance, and I think we need to keep him on contract till the audit is over. But if you all think differently, then I will follow whatever your recommendations are.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You
can go ahead.
I should ask.
That's totally fine.
May I speak?
You can speak.
So he left, to be clear, in the beginning of January and is that what you said? He's not been working since January?
No, he's been working on contract and helping us with the audit process. He also helped us with two major grants. One was the Major Cultural Institutions grant for the Tennessee Arts Commission. That was for about $150,000. He also helped us with the Arts Builds Communities grant, which is about $75,000. So already he's helped us with $225,000 worth of grants in the month past the contract deadline, because the deadlines for those grants were after that, and none of us were trained or had access to the grant modules to submit the grant. It was all attached to his email, and the grants don't let us use a generic email like arts@nashville.gov, like the Tennessee. They wanted to associate it with an individual, and so we couldn't move it to a generic email. So he's already helped us for $225,000. Yes, there is costs to paying him as a contract employee, but without him, we wouldn't have been able to submit those two grants. And we also have the audit process that I need his help with, because often we are told, well, why didn't you fix this? And then there's an email train from 4 years ago that says, we attempted it, we didn't have access, therefore we continued to do what we could do, but we documented it with this person in audit or finance or procurement, and I don't have access to that. So if he's not around, then I don't have a way to help audit understand why we're doing what we're doing the way we're doing it.
And his position, am I right? The person is Chris.
Christiana, yes.
Christiana is the new
Director of Finance and Operations.
And she's just been here for a few months.
She's been here for about 3.5 October. She started in October, so yeah.
Okay.
I was going to ask about Christiana and the transition, and just for my knowledge or our knowledge, how's that transition, what had been the process, and how is the final transition once Ian is out?
So Ian has been training her for about 15 to 18 hours a week to get her caught up on everything. But the way procurement and our financial processes work is that you have to get one training done before you can take level 2, before you can take level 3. So it's not like you can get everything done at one go. So it's been a long process. And also, till the grant deadlines came in January and February, there's no way for us to open up the state grants and show Christiana or Sydney what to do, because we don't have access to the actual module till the Tennessee Arts Commission opens it up. So he's been training as he gets the time to Christiana, but I think they're in a good place now. My primary concern right now is that he's there to help us with the audit. And it would be hours worked, right? Like, so if he works 10 hours, he gets paid 10 hours. If he works 40 hours, he get paid 40 hours. It's not like we're just giving him money.
So on the MCI and the ABC, those are annual grants.
Yeah.
And so,
Now that we have trained, we'll be good going forward.
and so you all did not have access to past grants in order to have Chris work on those. I guess I'm pretty familiar with MCI and ABC and all those things. And so so that was that piece. And then Ian not being able to be present in town, living in Seattle. I guess that's been a little difficult with training with Chris.
Absolutely.
Would Chris be working hand in hand with Ian throughout the audit? Because what I'm thinking forward, and I'm working this out as we're talking, so forgive me. But
for the next cycle of audit, yes.
Right. So for the current audit, like the one that we're in right now, because let's say there's findings that come out of that. And I guess this kind of comes back into the budget committee a little bit. So let's say there's findings. Ian would not be continuing on with us to rectify those findings.
Correct.
Or anything else.
It would be Chris and me that would work with the budget
and
committee.
You'll be involved with audit as well.
Yes, absolutely.
So in that case, that's another reason I was asking about the timeline, because fiscal year 23-24, you were present for the entire time. Chris was not. Ian was. When it comes to an audit of this nature, I like not to assume anything, so I'll ask you. Would the auditors be interviewing Ian because he was in charge during that time, so they would be getting all the information they needed without
They've done the intake interview, but we don't know what their findings are going to be, and we get a chance to respond to the findings. And often the person doing the audit now might not have been the previous auditor, and they might ask questions that were already addressed previously, and I wouldn't have that historical knowledge to say we process Thrive. I'm sorry, I think it's because of that door. So then we might have to go back and say, as we said in 2021, we asked for an object code for Thrive. We couldn't get it, and here's the email that said, don't do it that way, do it this way. Like, that would be in his files. I wouldn't have access to it, and so those would be the pieces I need his help with.
I'm trying to think. Something about this seems odd, and I can't figure out what it is. People leave positions all the time, and they're just gone. And having the former person on as a contractor when there's a current person in the role, it seems a little odd to me. But I do understand wanting to keep him on for the audit. But I guess my bigger question is, when he leaves, are these files just going to go into oblivion? Like, why does no one else have his files?
No, we'll have his emails, but I won't know that there was a discussion on this already with audit in the previous cycle or with whoever, and they told us to do something, right? Like, I wouldn't know to go look in his emails for that. And so that's why I'm saying we keep him on contract. If we need to use him, we use him. If you don't use him, then we don't pay him. But if you don't want to keep him, that's fine.
I'm just thinking it out loud. I think I would only be comfortable with the March and not coming back again to say we need him longer.
No,
okay.
No.
I'm just okay.
Yeah. And we don't even, like, if the audit concludes before then, we don't even need it.
Okay.
Right? Like, if the audit is done by end of February, then we're done. But also, like, if you all decide you don't want to do it at all, that's fine too. It's just a lot of moving pieces for me right now, and I'm trying to figure out how to help with all of the pieces that are being asked of me.
I like to know all that I can before I make a decision.
Sure.
That's all. Okay. Thank you.
And Ian's position in this case would be specifically audit, nothing grant related for fiscal year 24, nothing. And I guess that kind of leads into the question of excluding the $2 million. Have the grants for Thrive and general operating, have they all been paid out except for the $2 million?
There are about like 4 or 5 that had vendor issues, like their name on the company and the 990 didn't match the bank account name. So there are about 5 of those left over still that they're still trying to process, and they have to go through iSupplier and initiate their account, and we can't do it. They can only do it directly, like because it's a bank account. Like we can't put in the information. The vendor has to do it, and so some of those things have been stuck. So there are about 5 that are still stuck. But other than that, the first installments of all the general operating grants have been paid, and of the Thrive, I think all but 2 of the Thrive awards have been paid.
Thank you. But Chris would be involved from start to
100%
finish.
going forward, yeah.
And again, I guess I'm also, I like to have all the information, and I'm thinking this through right now, like Commissioner Love, that the auditors would more than likely, if they had questions, they would call Ian in for questions, correct?
They would call me and Chris, and then, but we don't know the history.
Gotcha.
And so it's not even in interim. It's like this week, for example, we had to prepare projections of the grants and Thrive for the budget process, right? Like, and neither Chris or Ian or I had done it. Like last year, Ian did all of it. So even this week, he was training us on how to prepare the budget modules to upload into our budget systems. And it only was opened on January 29th, and it closes this Friday. So if we didn't have him, I wouldn't have known how to do it, because I didn't do it last cycle and Chris didn't do it last cycle. So there are things like that are coming up that we didn't know we needed to know till the deadline actually happens, and we get a memo from central office that says, here's the budget module, prepare and upload it. And that's when we're like, oh, we've never done this before, right? And again, like, I just want to say that he's like hours worked. He's not, if he doesn't work, then he doesn't get paid. If you don't need to use him that week, he's not getting paid.
Thank you.
So I guess this is to just more general thing, just in support generally, and I have no interest in HR, like in terms of like but I do think in general, to Commissioner Love's point about, again, I don't want to say we're going to get hit by the bus again. Don't want to use that example. But we'll win the lottery again. Thank you. So positive. But that I do think there is value in someone new in a position having to figure it out as well, in with resources and things like that. That is a valuable thing. So I just want to say that in terms of, I know this is a special situation with the audit and things like this, but I know what it's like to lose someone who has a lot of experience and a lot of institutional memory. In our department, we just lost someone of 27 years, and it's super painful, right, in terms of the transition. And we did have a good transition in time, and I know that's important. But just kind of continuing to move towards the new resource, because the new hires are so great.
Yes,
I mean, Chris is
absolutely great, and
so
yeah,
just want to support her.
Yeah, and just to respond to your thing, also, like, after Ian leaves, we only have Ann Leslie and Attilio here, who are the longest serving, right? Like 10 years and 4. So in a department of about 16, 14 are less than 18 months into this, and that's a lot of change that I have to manage and try to understand each process and put it all together. So just bringing it out.
Quick question. I may have missed these in the past 5 minutes. But was clear that when Ian left as employee, he was going to be a contract for a while?
Yeah.
Like that was part of the
I had asked him to stay on as a contractor to help us with the transition, but like now it's deciding, do we want to end it now, or do you want to keep it till end of March and hope that the audit is done by then? Or if it's not done, even then, that's the timeline, right? Like we just, that's the end. And again, it's just hours worked. If you don't use him, then we're not paying him.
Okay.
And the budget allows for this?
Yes. We've had some transitions. Some have gone part-time, and in the email I sent to you, there's a long thing that some have gone part-time, and Marissa has resigned at the end of January, so there's some money we can move around. It's going to be tight, but we have money to move around.
Do we need to mention again that legal just not about Ian's anymore. What I'm saying is that do we need to go back and say that Liga said that we cannot have a closed meeting to talk about the HR, and how do we go about that? I don't want to bring it. I don't want to talk about it now, but I just want to.
It's information that you all need to know in more detail, and what I've given you is just very superficial highlights, and so I would prefer to do it in a closed meeting. But if that's not an option, then I need to bring it up in an open meeting, and then everyone gets to hear everything.
I think we just need to get clarity on how the information can be shared, because I'm not comfortable with HR issues being public. I'm just not, and I don't think I ever will be. But we just need to get clarity on how that information can be shared so we can discuss it. And
Agreed.
yeah,
that's
so yeah,
why
I don't want you to bring that up right now.
I'm not
so,
going
okay.
to. No. That's why I said, like, I would prefer to have a closed meeting, and then.
Okay.
But that's the request you have to make, right? Like, I can't request that. The committee has to request for a closed meeting.
So that would be, Chairperson, you would need to request for legal for a closed meeting, and then we would meet again.
Yes.
And that would be a closed meeting, but that's got to be a direct request from Chair.
Chair Perez, yes.
Got it.
I just want to clarify the Ian question. So, are we going to keep him, or you want to end his contract? Like, what are you all deciding?
If we clarify his role, and that his role is specific for audit questions that may arise, and that Chris and you are working hand in hand.
Absolutely.
That way, to Commissioner Luff's point, Vice Chair Luff's point, that way there is not this loss of information. And knowing that there could be findings that come out of this that need to be acted upon, that Ian would not be with us moving forward. And so those findings, while he may need to answer questions regarding those findings, I just would like to be very clear if we are going to extend or offer the contract that A, it's in the budget and we're not taking anything from anywhere else. No. And secondly, that his role would specifically be to answer audit questions in alignment with both of you.
Absolutely.
And is Ian I guess I should ask this, is Ian on board with this? Does he want to do this?
Yeah, well, given how he's been treated, I'm not sure. So I have to find out from him if he is still willing to support us. I don't know. So I have to ask him.
That would be a question, to ask him. But I feel like if his role was specific to the auditors have questions and they need to call Ian.
Or if there's something like a grant or a budget module that we haven't seen because it's in a very specific window, right? Like if anything like that crops up before March 30th, we would reach out to him, right? Because
so that would be outside of the audit.
That would be outside of the audit.
Let's say there's a grant issue that comes up for fiscal year 24
that we have never done before,
never dealt with before. Then Ian would be
like a trainer, to help Chris figure out what we need to do. Or also if there's a budget issue, because this is the first time Chris and I did the budget module, and we're uploading it this Friday, and the mayor's office looks at it, and then there's a second chance to do a true up and I don't know, understand all the accounting terms, but there's several steps before I have a meeting on March 21st with the budget office, and at that point, after that, I don't have any interactions with budget till the mayor releases the budget in end of April. So I would be like, okay, there's nothing else to do at that point. So, but if there's something that comes up with training me or Chris on the budget pieces or something else, we would still need to use him for that, because I don't have anyone else in-house. But we could also ask and see if there's someone in the county who can help us. So we can do all of that, but they just don't understand how Metro Arts has done it historically. That's the kind of the alignment we have to create, is what have you done historically? What does budget wants us to do? Does that help us do everything we do as the only other agency other than council that gives out money, right? We have all these weird workarounds that most other agencies don't, because we're the only agency that does everything the council does.
Is there any indication that going into the budget this year, what's the best way to say this? Going into the budget this year, you all would be training with him going into next year, so you would have that support, right? So
Yeah, we're working with him on it right now, and then so next year we wouldn't need it, right? Like we're trying to do it now, and then next year will be difficult, but like we would be able to get through it. Yeah.
And if the audit were to find that, let's say the way things were being done in the past, that there were findings or recommendations regarding how it was done, is there any chance that we're duplicating mistakes, or not mistakes, just things that were overlooked? That
Sure,
the
if there's
audit-
another way to do it, we can do it. But if there was a reason why we were doing it and someone from budget had told us to do it that way, I just want to have that information so we can rebut the findings, because that is an opportunity we have to say, here's the first draft, and then we get to respond to that. And so I don't have the history to respond to their findings at this moment. And then they take their draft and our responses, and that's what comes together as a final audit.
Back to the budgeting piece and all that and the grants, but Ian would not be part of the grant process this year,
The second installment, no, Chris is going to do that.
right? For
Yes.
fiscal year 24.
Yeah, so the one that we're getting as this, no, the second half of that, Chris is going to do that, yes.
But for the grant applications that were due on the 29th of January.
That's FY25. And again, that'll be
That's-
completely
that's-
Chris.
That's all Chris,
And
and that'll be
Sydney,
you and
yeah.
Chris working together on
Yeah,
that.
and
So
Chris and
Ian
Sid-
wouldn't. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to lighten the load on Ian, because if he's going to be doing this from Seattle, like
Yeah.
and to be very clear on who is doing what and who's responsible for what.
Yeah.
And if we were talking about him specifically being available for audit questions, that's one thing. But now we're also saying he needs to be available for any budgeting questions or any grant questions that come up. So just
Yeah.
wanted to go on record about this.
Yeah,
asking
yeah.
a question.
But like what I'm trying to say is like sometimes we don't know what we don't know. Like we've like Chris and I have never done the budget before. Chris and I have never done the Tennessee Arts Commission, or so there might be something that we don't know that comes up only once a year that we haven't come across yet. I'm hoping there's nothing. We've tried to be really methodical about saying what happens in January, what happens in February, what happens in March. But sometimes just because there's so much to do and we've been working with like 8 or 9 staff instead of the 16 we need, some of these things haven't been documented, because this has been, our staff has been in a skeleton staff from 2019, and then the pandemic freeze happened. We never hired back up. So there's like a 4 or 5 years deficit of processes and documentation that we're trying to get caught up and start building from scratch. Like a lot of these processes, the new managers are figuring it out, building the plane as they're learning how to fly and putting the wheels on it before they land. So it'll be bumpy and choppy, but we're getting there. Yeah.
Can I ask I'm sorry. I just start talking. Can I ask an informational question?
Sure.
Does someone like Ian, who's a contract, do they get benefits, or
No, he
it's
does
just
not get benefits.
they're just paid as an independent, like
Correct.
a 1099, whatever?
Yes.
Thinking about TAC and MCI and ABC, how it was prior, there is staff to help you all with the MCI and ABC, right?
From
TAC, from Tennessee Arts Commission.
Yes.
Okay, so you all do have that resource with Tennessee Arts Commission that can help with, the MCI deadline, I'm sure, like, I used to write these, so it's passed now, right? But ABC's coming up. So you would have the support of TAC staff if you had questions, or like...
There's a separate complete council process for every application we have to apply. We have to like file it with both grants and with council, and neither Chris nor I had done it. We've done it now because we got a chance to do it with Ian guiding us how to do it, but this was the first time we've done it, right? Like, so there are things that we think we don't need, and then we find that we need it. So like we would have gotten the Tennessee Arts Commission support, but they wouldn't know what to do to lead us through council, and there's a really tight turnaround because they open it only for 4 weeks, and council requires 6 weeks for us to get it through the council approval process. So then we always have to have a workaround for that, and I wouldn't have known that till we tried it this year. So
Thank you for that clarification.
yeah. Questions?
Go ahead.
So
I was going to move to the other.
Yeah.
Okay. So, great. We're moving to adjourn the meeting.
Yeah. Need a motion and a second.
Do we need to make a motion to keep Ian
Oh,
on contract?
Sure, whatever.
Yes.
Do we need that or no?
So I'm move that we keep Ian under contract until May. I mean
March
March.
30th.
Okay, go ahead. Until March 30th. Let me restate that. I move that we keep Ian on as a contractor until March 30th of 2024.
I second.
I guess I have a question. I'm sorry.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Is there a limit on how many hours he can bill every week? I guess I'm
40
just
is the max.
worried that, what if Ian ends up taking on most of the job? And so is there a limit on that, or?
So the max would be 40 hours, but it would every week would be actual hours worked. So if he only works 20 hours this week, then that's all he's going to get paid. So every week would be actual hours, but the max would be 40 hours a week.
And
And
this
not
is-
accumulative.
Sorry?
It won't accumulate or anything.
No,
Like,
no,
he's
no. So
just
yeah.
max 40.
Week by week.
And it's still kind of contingent upon if Ian wants to do this or not.
If Ian wants
Yeah.
to do it and if he needs the work, like there might be that nothing happens and the audit takes 6 months, then he's out at end of March, right? Like because the audit took longer than we thought it would take.
Thank you.
So is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
And then all in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Thank you. I'm going to move to adjourn this meeting now. So meeting adjourned.
Second.
I seconded that.
Thank you.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yep.
Thank you all.
I feel like I have
Thank you.
this
Happy
little-
birthday to your son.
Son, yes.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.